This is John McDougall with OKRod.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. In this episode, I'll be answering your guys' questions. If you guys have a question for me, please post down below on my community tab, and it may appear in next month's Q&A. In any case, let's go ahead and get right into these questions. Number one is from Donna Tina 1987. Which cooked foods are worth to focus on and how to prepare them properly? All right, so my personal opinion on this is that I want to encourage you guys, if you guys do choose to heat process your food, which I'm not going to say is necessary, but what I'm going to say for me is that I found it to be quite beneficial to help me reduce the amount of fruits I eat, as well as get additional calories from foods and unique fibers from food that I was not getting, as well as phytonutrients. So what I would say is I want you, if you do choose to heat process your food, which I prefer to say instead of cooked, is I want you guys to heat process your food in the best way possible, and that is simply in an instant pot. In the instant pot, you can steam and cook in water. This way the temperature will not get too hot and not create carcinogens, one of the big problems with cooked foods. In addition, I also recommend heat processing some of the most nutritionally dense foods on the entire planet. Things I tend to cook are things like purple sweet potatoes, purple rice, purple potatoes. I also will heat process things like mushrooms, as well as various different kinds of grains. Also like to heat process my artichokes. And of course, because I am in my garden and I don't need no backdrops here, everything you see is live plants. I have copious amounts of greens and other vegetables that I could harvest and cook, actually in the Instant Pot, usually steamed, and then I could get them into me to increase my consumption of vegetables, which I personally believe are more important than fruit for our health. If you guys want to know more about what I heat process and how, link down below to my recent video where I go over this all. Hey guys, it's John McDougall. I've got something really special for you from January 12th to the 18th. I'll be hosting a one-of-a-kind, super intimate retreat in the Caribbean on Kalamata Island in the Spanish Virgin Islands. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. Just 4 to 8 of you will get my personal one-on-one time with me, learning everything about organic gardening and holistic health alongside my buddy Kailash Niels. Spots are super limited, so if you ever want to hang out with me in person, this is your chance. Hit the link below to reserve your spot, and I can't wait to see you there. Right, the next question is from Catherine Arnold, 1966. A friend has been insistently in favor of John McDougall's starch diet. Some of it sounded good, but I had my doubts about it covering all the vital bases even before his demise. Any comments on its efficiency? McDougall did post mortem of Steve Jobs' diet practice. I would appreciate a recap of McDougall's. All right, so I'm definitely not doing a post-mortem of John McDougall's diet practice, although I do have my own opinions on his diet. My personal opinion is this. I've never read his books. I've seen him talk live many times, actually different veg events. You know, I think his problem, and maybe part of his demise, is focusing on too much on starch. I mean, on some levels, I could agree with him that, yes, starch made us human. And, you know, plenty of people, especially on a raw vegan diet, don't consume any starch. That could be quite problematic for our gut bacteria, because you are literally not feeding certain gut bacteria that we have literally made us human on. That's why I include some small amounts. 10 to 20% of my diet these days is heat processed vegetables, and actually they're mostly starchy vegetables or other steamed plant foods such as rice and beans that I wouldn't otherwise be eating. That being said, I think McDougall's thing is that he focuses too much on starch, and you could even add salt and other things to, you know, eat starch and have French fries. And I mean, I don't even know. Like, for him, as long as it's starch, it's all right. For me, that's not all right. For me, it's about like eating nutrient dense and high phytonutrient plant foods, right? So I would encourage you to talk to your friend about Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He has an approach of all the plant-based doctors out there that I personally would agree with most, although I would tweak as I am doing myself. You know, I want you guys to eat like really foods have been shown in published studies to have major health benefits, right? Things like mushrooms, onions, beans, cruciferous vegetables, right? Anthocyanin-rich foods. You know, Dr. Furman has his G bombs that he recommends you guys eat every day. And whether you guys want to try to eat those raw or heat processed or cooked, I'd encourage you guys to get those into you. You know, so I don't know his specific diet. I don't know what John McDougall ate, but I really think that he really didn't focus enough on the greens. The greens is literally the majority plant on our diet. It makes up the majority of the earths when things are growing. They're all green, and yet, you know, he didn't really, I mean, while he was a really big advocate for starches, but he really didn't talk about like, yeah, greens are really critical and important for our health. So, you know, that's my slant. And of course, McDougall didn't talk about the freshness or the quality or the raw, you know, or minimally processing your foods either. So, you know, that's two big things that I'm really big on, is processing the foods the least way possible to maintain the most nutritional value and components of that food that can give us the health benefits, instead of fry the heck out of your french fries and yes, still be eating starch, but also creating carcinogens at the same time. So I want to create the least carcinogens and maximize the health benefit of the foods, and that's what I teach you guys on my channel. Things that other channels won't really even talk to you guys about. So like vacuum blending, slow juicing, vacuum freeze drying, which is significantly better than simply dehydration, as well as using an instant pot for heat processing your food that does the least amount of damage while allowing you to absorb some of the different phytochemicals in higher amounts than even eating them raw. All right, next question is from Mary Herbivore 3393. Hi John, do you eat your raw food before your heat processed food, or vice versa? Does it even matter? Over the years, I've heard so much conflicting info on how you should eat raw food before cooked food for the best digestion. I'm wondering if there's any validity to it. For example, I always have a big raw smoothie for my first meal and then a huge cooked meal for my second meal. But I've always wanted to change it up and do a big cooked meal for my first meal and then raw smoothie for the second meal. I'm wondering if this would give me digestive issues. Any experience with it? Would love to hear your opinion. All right, Mary, so the first thing I'll say is that we are all different digestively. While you may hear, you know, hey, it's always best to eat raw foods first and then eat your cooked foods, because, you know, there's enzymes in the raw foods, which is said to help us digest our cooked foods. That being said, you know, while that is true to some extent, I would also say that, especially if you're eating cooked foods, it's probably good to take an additional enzyme supplement, right? Because obviously when you're heat processing your food, you're killing all the enzymes and the digestive enzymes in the foods, and as well as supplementing with supplemental enzymes, which is something I do. Actually, I take the MRM brand of digestive enzymes every day when I eat my cooked foods or thereafter. So what I'll say is this, like, you know, I generally like to eat my heat processed foods later in the day. So usually that comes in the evening, and, you know, all day I've eaten like raw, and I don't want to say I'm raw till 4, because that's not what I do. I just don't pig out on any cooked foods, and it's not just 4 o'clock and then I'm like, I can eat any cooked foods I want. No, I'm usually eating raw foods, drinking fresh juices, eating fruits and vegetables all throughout the day, and then maybe usually around 5 o'clock or 6, I start eating my heat processed foods. I try to eat a raw salad before my heat processed foods in many instances. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but of course, all day I've been eating raw out of my garden, and fruits and vegetables, especially like 2 different juices a day on average, which is like 2 quarts, which is already like 8 pounds of produce. Usually they're vegetable-based juices. But actually there are some days actually in the winter time when I would actually, as my first meal, or no, maybe I'd still have my juice as my first meal, but then my second meal I would have my heat processed oatmeal in the Instant Pot. So, you know, I personally didn't feel a real big difference between eating, like, you know, sometimes I do my oatmeal first and then my green juice, which is rare. Usually I do the green juice and then the oatmeal, and then the rest of the day is raw, and then I might have something heat processed at night. Some days I might make the raw oatmeal, link down below to that, where I use a sprouted oats that are GMO tested, free. So, you know, for me, my digestion is totally fine. So it's not like I'm a fragile, digestive system person. Like, you know, I also supplement with different kinds of probiotics and prebiotic fiber powders, which probably makes me even more resilient. I mean, I have no idea. So what I'm going to say for you is this: try it, right? Don't be scared like to try like a heat processed meal. That being said, I would encourage you to take some enzymes with it, and see how it affects you, right? See how it works for you. You know, there is something to be said about eating raw before cooked to get some of the enzymes, or even to eat your cooked foods with some raw foods added into it, of course, once they have been cooled, to get some raw foods effects. That being said, you didn't mention what cooked foods you're eating, and of course, there's very limited amounts of heat processed foods that I would agree with, so I don't know, you know, if you're having something super crazy cooked, not whole food, plant-based, with all kinds of different things in there. You know, it's all the ingredients and how the food is processed that's going to affect your digestive system more than just simply heating it or not. Of course, you know, something like steamed greens, a lot easier to digest than something more complex with, you know, oils, fats, sugars, and something highly processed. So that's what I'll say to you. I would say that try it and see as an experiment, right? And see how you feel. All right, next question is from Donatina, 1987. Greens as good protein source. All right, so I guess you're asking if leafy greens are a good protein source. So actually earlier today I was watching my old YouTube videos from like 9 years ago, and I made a video where I just was visiting a horse. And the horse, the horse was a magnificent animal. I mean, it's just muscular, strong, and as it's sitting there, it's like eating the grass. And I'm saying, hey, horses are herbivores, and they get all their protein from the greens, right? Hopefully they're not being fed horse meat or other kind of GMO corn and soy. Hopefully they're eating non-sprayed alfalfa. But basically, you know, some of the largest and most powerful animals on earth get their protein from plants. I mean, even think about like pandas. What do they eat all day? They eat bamboo shoots and greens. They're getting their protein from greens. They really, even though they have like fangs and stuff like carnivores, they've adapted to getting greens for their protein. So I believe greens can be an amazing protein source. The fact of the matter is, in my opinion, most people on a plant-based diet or even raw vegan diet don't eat enough greens. My goal these days is to eat 2 pounds of greens a day, and usually by the first juice, which I haven't had yet, you know, I've already gotten 4 pounds of greens and vegetables in me, because the green juice I'm just about to make in a minute after this video is going to be 12 heads of romaine, 2 heads of organic cabbage, as well as the moringa off my tree right here, as well as kale from my garden, celery, and ashitaba stalks that I grew as well. Maybe a little lemon to help it preserve longer, and it's all stored under vacuum. Link down below to my video on how I bulk green juice, which is a good example of my juice, although my recipes always change based on the seasonality of the produce. And here's the thing, like, I like to juice my greens so I can concentrate them in higher levels and, more importantly, get better digestion from them. You know, when I would see my ex-girlfriend, rest in peace, Novali, who's no longer with us, go to the bathroom, and I would see her poop, she would have, you know, she'd eat salads, and I'd see salad, like, literally come out of her because they're not getting digested. So, you know, depending on how you chew and how your digestive system is, greens might not be a good protein source for you because you're not digesting them, because you're not chewing them well enough, and you're not digesting them because your body's not used to digesting them. That's why I say juicing them is excellent, because now really it opens up the fibrous cell walls, unlocks the protein, vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals in the greens so that our bodies can more easily digest them and get the benefits of not only the protein, but I think the phytochemicals are the most important, especially things like the isothiocyanates in the moringa that I'm pulling down in front of me. This tree is beautiful. Now, aside from the green juices, if you don't want to juice, you could buy green powders, which are basically, you know, dehydrated and ground up greens, which can be more digestible because they're already broken up. That being said, they may lose nutrition because of the dehydration process. So if you could afford them and find them, I would recommend freeze-dried greens, which is actually quite rare. Of course, just chewing them really well, and or even just blending them up in a vacuum blender to make a green smoothie. I also like to do green blended salads as well. Next question is from Mama Loves the Beach 437. I buy Bubby's pickles because they are the only ones I could find that are fermented. I watched your video about adding Saccharomyces boulardii to fermented cherry juice. Can you add SB to pickles, capers, etc. to get the same fermentation as you do with your cherry juice? Thank you, John. All right, so number one, Bubby's pickles have been heat sterilized. So while they have been fermented, they are not raw, despite being sold in some refrigerated sections in the grocery store. You know, when you open up a jar of pickles and the lid is sunk down and then it pops up when you open it, that means it's been heat sealed, and you know, you're no longer going to have the beneficial bacteria in there. That being said, you will get the metabolites of some of the bacteria due to the fermentation process before pasteurization. That being said, I'm not a fan of pasteurized fermented products such as the Bubby's. Bubby's actually also owns the company Wild Brine, which does make actually, you know, raw fermented pickles. So to me, the Wild Brine is very easy. It's actually sold at Trader Joe's, also sold in big jars at Costco, available at Sprouts Farmers Markets, natural grocers, even Whole Foods. Of course, I would recommend better health food stores to find your own raw fermented products. You know, there's other companies. I think the Grillos is a company. I think those are raw pickles. Sonoma Pickle Company makes some. They're not heated or pasteurized. Generally, if they're in the deli case in like a plastic container, which I'm not a big fan of plastic, they are usually raw. That being said, SB, Saccharomyces boulardii, specifically eats the sugar in the cherry juice. So if you're trying to add Saccharomyces boulardii to pickles and or capers or pickles, whatever you're trying to do, right, it's not going to work because you don't have the sugar. You know, so I would not recommend that, right? Let's see what I might. I mean, I would recommend if you're really that hardcore, like just I would do the Saccharomyces boulardii with, you know, pasteurized juice. You could experiment to make it with like fresh juice, but then I'm kind of concerned about the wild culture aspect and what's really going to grow in there. That being said, I would recommend fermenting and making your own pickles. Hopefully you could buy pickles near you. Hopefully you could buy cucumbers near you. Simply make your own pickles at home. It's very simple and easy. And of course, they have different benefits than the Saccharomyces boulardii ferment. The Saccharomyces boulardii is a beneficial yeast, unlike the beneficial bacteria, usually lactobacillus, in the pickles and whatnot. So, you know, I encourage you to include all different kinds of probiotics in your life. All right, next question is from user VV3QD2FD5Y. Any fruit or vegetable that has more nutrient when juicing? All right, so here's the thing, like fruits or vegetables don't have more nutrition necessarily when juicing. Same thing, like fruits or vegetables don't necessarily have more nutrition when heat processing. However, certain nutrients can be better absorbed after processing. So for example, when you're heat processing in the Instant Pot, as I've shown in videos linked down below, some nutrients can be increased while other nutrients can be decreased because you are blowing open cell walls. So that's the same thing in juicing. You know, if you eat a carrot, there are published studies showing that some of the beta carotene will not absorb into your bloodstream as fast or as rapidly or as much as if you drank the carrot juice, right? So, you know, personally, I would say that the fruits, I would avoid juicing fruits because I don't think juicing fruits is a good thing. Fruits are so tasty, delicious, and have soft fibers that we can chew up and digest very easily. Eat your fruits. You're going to get your best digestion and nutrition from eating your fruits and chewing them up well. And if you want to make a juice-like consistency with fruit, I would recommend vacuum blending them. So, you know, fruit is off the table for me, and juicing, like even if you juice like, I don't know, blueberries, for example, you know, you're still going to have significant losses of anthocyanins that are going to come out in the pulp that you're actually not going to end up eating. And they're so easy to digest. Meanwhile, if you're juicing purple carrots are hard to break open the cell walls. Maybe if you cook them, you could do it. Even if you put them in a Vitamix and you just blend them to heck, The problem with the Vitamix is that you're introducing air and you're going to lower some of the oxygen sensitive nutrients in there. So, that's why I like to juice things like carrots as well as the leafy greens to unlock the nutrients in there so that they could be absorbed in higher levels than they otherwise would. So the same thing goes with things like the protein and minerals, phytochemicals, and vitamins in vegetable juices may be better absorbed than eating them whole. And so you could get more therapeutic doses if that is important to you. Some people may not believe in therapeutic doses. John, we don't need therapeutic doses because nature didn't do that. And we live in a very unnatural world. And I like therapeutic doses of my moringa that can help me detoxify better, right? I was eating some moringa. I picked some from my baby plants and ate some of the top leaves. But yeah, so I don't recommend like just juicing them. I recommend eating them whole, vacuum blending them, juicing them, heat processing them so that you could get all these nutrients in different forms, because different nutrients, depending on the way you process them, will be absorbed differently, and you're going to get different benefits from the same plant. So that's basically what I've seen in the published studies. So that's what I'll tell you on there. Generally, you're going to get more nutrition out of them when juicing things like root vegetables that are hard to digest and or leafy greens, maybe to some extent stem vegetables also, but not fruit in my personal opinion. All right, next question is from Healthy Option 865. How do you curb your appetite on a raw food diet? All right, that's a good question. So on a raw food diet, maybe you need to eat more calories. I don't know how much you're eating, but one of the big problems that especially noobs into a raw food diet simply don't eat enough, because most foods you're eating on a processed standard American diet are devoid of water and have high calories. And if you're eating greens, they're like approximately 100 calories per pound, some even less. If you're eating fruits, they're about 300 calories per pound, sometimes even less. So people don't usually eat enough. So if you eat enough, you can curb your appetite. That being said, I don't just say gorge on only mangoes and have mango mono meals. I think another very important component is how full is our stomach. Are our stretch receptors going out enough so that it triggers our brain to say, hey, we're full and our appetite is curbed? But another big element that is not often talked about is what are our nutritional needs? If you eat only mangoes, that's great. You're getting all the different nutrients, phytonutrients, vitamins, and minerals in mangoes, but you're missing out on the nutrients from water spinach or other greens and other foods that you're going to eat. So instead of just eating mono meals these days, I encourage you guys to eat a diversity of foods, at least a duo meal. Some of the duo meals I was having earlier this week was honeydew melon with blueberries, which was actually a really good combo, especially the honeydew is quite sweet. So I encourage you to have a diversity of foods. This may also help curb your appetite, because every different food has different nutrients, and then you're going to basically hit your nutrient goals, so then your hunger will be curbed. Sometimes you feel ravenous on a raw vegan diet. I've had this happen to me many nights on a raw vegan diet. And, I feel that on some levels, raw vegan diets may be mineral deficient. So I think adding something like seaweed can be quite helpful. Also, depending on the raw vegan diet you're doing, it may be very low in fat. I don't recommend no overt fat, low raw food diets. I recommend eating maybe a handful or two of nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds also can help curb your appetite on a raw food diet. And I would encourage you to maybe eat something a little more hearty, right? You could soak some oats and eat them, and they could still be considered raw, although, well, the oats have been probably steam sterilized. Link down below to my video on my raw oatmeal. So like literally diversifying the different kinds of plant foods you're eating, because a lot of raw food diets focus around mostly fruits, maybe some vegetables, but I really want you guys to do sprouting of beans and grains that can be sprouted and eat them, so you could diversify your diet and also curb your appetite more. So those are some of the tips that I would share with you, Healthy Options. All right, next question is from Joybug007. View on Kalamata olives, is it raw vegan? What's an appropriate amount to eat throughout a day to week? That's a good question. So Kalamata olives, number one, I think they are an amazing food. They're purple, so they got the anthocyanins in there. That's what I think on Kalamata olives. Now, is it raw vegan? That depends. If you're buying it in a can, not raw vegan. It's been heat sterilized. If you're buying it in a jar and the lid is sunk in, not raw vegan. Now, if you're buying it in like a tub from like Greece, when it's like, I bought them in these like 1 gallon, I think, like plastic tubs, they're not heat sealed, they might be raw vegan. But if you really want to be hardcore strict raw vegan, you won't even buy those. You know, you could maybe get the Bogilla olives from Peru that are purple, and they are raw vegan, like the Raw Food World from Mount Monarch, or the ones from the Sun Food Company. They're actually quite expensive. But if you want the real raw vegan olives, you want to get the brand Big Picture Foods, right? You could order these online, link down below to their website. I've interviewed them at the trade show, link down below to that video. Those are truly raw vegan. All their olives are raw vegan. They have to be sold refrigerated. Actually, I'll change that, because actually they have a new line of now jarred olives that are not raw vegan. They've been lightly heat processed. So you can get them. They may be quite expensive. Of course, you could, depending on where you live, like you could harvest your own olives and cure them yourself. Also, we could talk about curing. Salt curing is probably the worst way, in my opinion, to cure olives, because you add significant amounts of sodium in there. So if you do have the sun-dried olives, you will want to leach out the sodium, because that's definitely not healthy. I like to eat olives. They're one of my favorite foods. I also do eat olive oil in small amounts, and high polyphenol olive oil. That's $90 a bottle. So you could expect that I'm not like dumping it on everything. When it's $90 a bottle, that's quite expensive. But yes, I think olives are an amazing food and should be eaten. Although some people on a raw food diet would say olives are toxic because you can't eat them when they're fresh off the tree. But, I think they're perfectly... and actually, I have eaten them fresh off the tree. With David Wolf, we picked olives back in the day in San Diego, picking fresh olives sun-dried naturally on the tree, and actually when they fell onto the ground below the tree. And what's an appropriate amount to eat throughout a day to week? That's a good question. So that depends on you and your activity level and the amount of fat that you're eating on your raw vegan diet. So I like to eat one of the Big Picture Foods, packages. They're like a little flat. If I pull out a flat, I might eat, like, if I'm just going to sit there and add them to a salad, I might eat like a half to a quarter of their little package, their raw fermented ones that are in refrigerated case, in one sitting. What I normally do is I batch prep, and I just take one batch of those and just dump it in my whole salad prep that I make salad for like the next 4 days. So yeah, it's about a quarter of one of their packets. Also, when I open it up, I drain out the water that it comes in, or the brine. I'll add in distilled or reverse osmosis water, let it sit in there to leach out some of the extra salt before I eat them. So yeah, I think we don't want to overdose on too many olives, especially most of them are going to be higher in salt than I would like. But I think they are a nutritious food. All right, next question is from Jesse Fawn, 2797. I am looking for a bottom motor to my Vitamix 5200. Do you sell that, Jesse? And he leaves his phone number. All right, Jesse. So I don't sell Vitamixes and I don't sell parts. If you're just looking for a motor base for your Vitamix 5200, there are many models that are very similar. I would recommend something like eBay or OfferUp. In many cases, motor bases can be found for $100 or less. You would want to look for one that has low usage. All right, down to the last question from JF Demiano. I know you use marijuana buds for food, but do you use buds that people would smoke, or would it be from a female plant? Again, I don't know enough about that, and have a local dispensary independently owned near me with their own growers with organic safe practices. I smoked it and noticed a huge difference from bigger dispensaries. I no longer smoke, so I was wondering if I'm able to just buy that and add it to my food, or if you have a video from your gardening channel that you would recommend. I appreciate what you do. You have absolutely no idea. All right, so on the marijuana buds, what I'd say is I usually get them from friends. And while I will eat the buds, actually what I prefer to eat instead of the buds are the marijuana leaves. I don't have any cannabis growing here, but I think the cannabis leaves are really the best to eat, right? I don't really want to eat buds, but unfortunately, they don't really sell leaves at dispensaries. Maybe if the local dispensary, if they have their own growers, you could ask them if they could get leaves from the growers. Actually, those are a lot better to eat, in my opinion, than the buds, because they're a lot less concentrated, and you could eat a lot more of them more often, because, and also too, they have less of the THC and CBD, which is one element of the food that I actually eat them for, but the leaves have also vitamins, minerals, and other phytochemicals, protein, fiber as well, that is actually quite good for us. So yes, so while I do get most of my cannabis flower from friends in the past, I have bought cannabis flower from the dispensary that I will eat. Got to make sure it's organic, in any case, so it sounds like you have a good local dispensary to do that. I've also bought in like CBD flower at farmers markets to eat as well. So yeah, I mean, and I guess the worst thing about buying at a dispensary to eat is that, you're not going to really get high from it for the most part. And it is actually really expensive to buy. What is it, like, I think $100 an ounce in the dispensaries near me, which is probably not even good quality stuff. So I would say if you live in a state where it is legal to grow your own plants, so then you could eat the leaves, which once again, in my opinion, way more beneficial than just the buds and the flowers that are quite concentrated and which are grown for usually the THC content. Other suggestion I would give you is if you can find at your local dispensary CBD dominant varieties. So actually the dispensary here, actually I bought some, like, it was like 50% CBD, 50% THC buds is what I bought organically grown to eat. I found that if I ate a small one, I didn't get high, but if I ate a larger one, I would. So then I was like, okay, I'm only going to eat small amounts because I personally don't want to feel that psychoactive effect from my cannabis. All right, so that's it for this month's Q&A. I hope that you guys enjoyed this month's Q&A. And if you, once again, you guys have questions for me you would like me to answer, post it down below in the community tab on my channel here. And it may be in next month's Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode today. And if you did, please be sure to give this a big thumbs up. More importantly, share this video with other people on a raw vegan diet that it may help improve their diet and get them on a healthier track. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss my new and upcoming episodes. I've come out every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I show up, what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. Make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. And finally, be sure to check my past episodes. Past episodes are wealth of knowledge. Over 800 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to teach you guys all about eating more fresh fruits and vegetables and other plant foods to enhance your health. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always best.